Over the 20 years I was involved in investigations, some of the most horrific crimes the country of Australia has ever had, I had to face many, many psychics because they're drawn like moths to a light. Once a national newsworthy story comes, and all of a sudden they're walking through the door and they want to meet you and tell you that they can solve it for you. And without exception, all of them have been dodgy or frauds or not who they think they are. Except one.
Psychic Debbie Malone has been helping police with murder investigations.
Two of Australia's best psychics join us now. It's a very good morning to Debbie Malone.
When I start to tune in, I actually get like symbolic messages.
She did the same. She walked through the door and she wanted to talk to me about a serial offender who was kidnapping and raping little girls and in the end killing. I took her in the same vein as I took everyone before her, but this one, she rocked me. She really had something to offer.
When I was a little girl, I used to see things in my bedroom, and I used to hear voices and sort of see lights flying around, and I was scared of the dark. But my mum just told me I had an overactive imagination and wanted attention, but I knew there was something in there because I was terrified to go to sleep every night. I kept hearing this voice saying you could be psychic, but when I spoke to any of my friends, they didn't want to know about it. They just thought I was a weirdo. So I did everything I could to ignore it, and then it sort of came back later on in life. Around 1999-2000, I was part of a TV show called Scream Test that was on Channel 10.
Another one? I'm Debbie Malone, actually a spirit medium.
I was locked in Maitland Jail in different jail cells.
Debbie the psychic is about to test her powers in cell 46, also known as the suicide cell.
I got physically attacked by the ghosts.
Oh, don't you dare touch me. Just go away, back off, back off. He likes me talking to him, about him, and I don't want him touching me, so bugger off, thank you very much. The temperature's warming up.
I was strangled. I had strangulation marks on my neck for over 18 months, but I actually thought I was going crazy because it wouldn't go away. If I didn't have my own proof and my own experience, maybe I wouldn't have believed that it could happen. And it was also part of a way to say, well, look, I'm not going mad. This thing is really here because here's an image of it. I think it was later on in my 20s, and I was watching the news and the backpacker murders was on all the time. And then I started to dream about the girls as though they were still alive.
The serial killings of Belanglo State Forest.
7 bodies have been recovered from the area.
The remains of 7 backpackers were discovered in the Belanglo State Forest. Bushwalkers found the first bodies in September 1992.
The first to be uncovered, British backpackers Caroline Clark and Joanne Walters.
It was a year before another chance discovery, this time 2 backpackers from Melbourne.
And a month later, the remains of 21-year-old German tourist Simone Schmidl were uncovered.
I was terrified to go to sleep because every time I'd go to sleep, I'd actually be part of the backpacker murders and I'd become a victim, or I could be the murderer, seeing it through his eyes, killing the victims, or it'd be like I'd be made to watch as though I was a witness, but I couldn't stop what was going on. And I just thought I was watching the television too much. But then I realised that I was starting to see things before it was on the news. It was quite frightening, and I couldn't understand at first why I could see it and knew about things that nobody else did. And then I ended up telling a friend of mine, and her husband was actually on the task force. So he wanted to know all the names of my doctors, had I had any mental health issues, and he wanted to know my alibis, and that's when they assigned 2 officers to me that I gave the information to. When I first made contact with the police and started to tell them what I was seeing, of course they thought I was a crazy woman.
The scepticism around psychics and clairvoyance, you have to understand, is probably warranted. They're a particular lot, and you tend to find them just coming through the front door to sit with you and offer their divisions. And it suits them to be accepted or to be listened to by somebody who's a qualified or a serious detective.
They said that they had a lot of people that were psychics giving them information, but then the information I was getting was actually information that only they knew. The police started to ask me different things. I kept a diary for them, and when I had enough information, they'd come and collect it off me. But then one of the officers had said the fact that I was starting to know too much, that, you know, I was becoming a suspect, or I might have had to go to court over it.
A day of startling developments in Australia's biggest murder hunt.
I think it's fair to say that we do have a serial killer.
Police in Australia are questioning a 49-year-old man in connection with the murder of 7 backpackers, sparking one of the biggest police investigations in Australian history.
The arrested man is a former truck driver. Neighbours describe him as easygoing and friendly.
As he was being led away, Ivan Milat shouted that he was being framed.
The police thought that I was more of a suspect after Ivan Milat's girlfriend, Shalinda Hughes, contacted me because she wanted me to help get Ivan off, because she didn't think Ivan was guilty. She was the one that was seen wearing the Benetton top that was the top of one of the English backpackers. I'd spoken to Shalinda on the phone, but the more I saw, the more freaky and creepy it became, and yeah, I did start to worry that, you know, I was getting in too deep. I could become a victim if I started to know too much. She gave me a warning that someone could come after me, and then a fake electricity man came to my house that day. Something in me just said, get out, they know you're here. I went to open the front door and I said, who's there? And he didn't answer. And then I rang the police and said to them about it, and they told me just to get out of the house. It was putting my life in danger physically as well as mentally. It was becoming very challenging. Working with the police, with the Milat family, I did everything remotely, so I never actually went to locations. It was more me tuning in or having visions. It's a bit like talking to the ether though, because she'd send the information out and you didn't know if it was right or wrong, only if you saw it on the television.
Police have evidence linking Ivan Milat with the killings.
Milat's solicitor, John Marsden, said the charges would be defended.
Mr. Milat has accused the Crown of framing him, saying,
I'm stuck in jail, yet they don't have one iota of proof.
The thing is, the police will go on record and say they don't work with psychics, even though they do. I've assisted on a case, but to be arrogant to say, you know, I solve everything, I don't. You know, I'm just part of the puzzle and a tool that they might utilise to assist for clues. There was another case I was called in to assist on, and it was a missing girl named Amber Haig, and she went missing from young, and I was asked to go down there. But the police officer said to me, if you come down and you find her body, I'm going to arrest you because you must have done it. I'd never been to Young before in my life. I had nothing to do with the case. He's asking for my assistance, and I always have worked pro bono with the police. So what was there to gain for me to go down to help him and then him arrest me for the murder? Some people will believe and some won't. It's the same as in the police force. Some of them have said to me, you know, as a last resort, they'll do anything to try and see if they can bring up any new information.
I became aware with Debbie that she had a history with some very serious detectives working on very serious crimes. She was able to assist them and give them information that they weren't privy to. I thought, I'll sit down and talk to this woman. I thought I would test her. We went for a drive into a suburb where a little girl had been kidnapped. I played it really arrogant and aloof, not to give her anything. So I took her deliberately to the wrong house. And she just said to me, Colin, you're going to the wrong house. Go back 4 houses. At the back of that house is where the crime happened. And she was right. I thought I'd take it another step further. The next day, we drove through a series of streets and I told her absolutely nothing as to what we were doing. I was driving very, very slowly as if we were canvassing the area. I did that all day and she had nothing to offer me. We're talking about 13,000 houses in about 6 suburbs all together. And I deliberately left the house that I had a good feeling about, that I believed the suspect was in, for the 3rd day. 20 minutes before the end of that day. I went past that house as well as dozens and dozens of other houses, and she had a very strange, almost convulsive attack. And she screamed at me to stop the car, and she pointed at the house and said, "The killer is in that house." I couldn't believe it. I think if, as a detective, and you're going to deal with a psychic, you're going to have to realise there are some eccentricities with these individuals. If they are genuine, and I've only met one that is, I guess they're carrying a burden, carrying a load. And I know Debbie suffers from that. She told me a couple of times that these visions weren't necessarily welcomed.
Learning to accept this gift has been very challenging. You're feeling the pain and suffering of hundreds of victims. Working on crime, people don't die easily and quietly or, painlessly. So it can be quite horrific. And sometimes it's made me think, why do I bother? But then the other part of me keeps thinking it's for a reason, and if it can help people, even if it can help one person, then it's important. I think it's going to be an interesting ride for people to understand what's good and what's bad, but I think it's more a matter of opening people's minds. Even like me being a psychic, I'm not here to change the world and make everyone believe in me. It's more a matter of opening people's minds and maybe making them think, and then they can make their own conscious decision.
I think the end result of working with Debbie was that it only reinforced my opinion that if a psychic comes to me and has something to offer, then I will absolutely sit with them. One of the key things and most important things is to keep an open mind as a detective. And Debbie showed me that if I kept that open mind, she might just give me a little bit more. I was out of the police department at this stage, that was the trouble. And I was doing this myself because this crime had always stayed with me, and I always did things to try and assist. But I was met by a police department that wasn't interested in listening to psychics. So there we have it. I can't explain how she knew that, but I will never forget the reaction. And she was absolutely correct after 3 days and 13,000 houses. And to this day, the crime is still unsolved.